Allegations of inappropriate behavior by Garrison Keillor were more substantial than indicated in November when Minnesota Public Radio severed ties with him, according to a letter the network sent its members on Tuesday. The letter from the network's president, John McTaggart, said that NPR received a 12-page correspondence on October 22 from the lawyer for a woman who had worked with Mr. Keillor on a Prairie Home Companion that described dozens of sexually inappropriate incidents directed at her client over a period of years. The woman's lawyer detailed many of the alleged incidents, including excerpts from emails and written messages, requests for sexual contact and explicit descriptions of sexual communications and touching, according to Mr. McTaggart. The woman has not publicly identified herself. It was her allegations that prompted the network to open an independent investigation. "We told Garrison that we were doing so," Mr. McTaggart said. When the network dropped Mr. Keillor, it did not offer details beyond saying that there had been allegations of inappropriate behavior. At the time, Mr. Keillor indicated that the allegations related to an incident in which he said he had put his hand on a colleague's bare back. He said he had offered her an apology later, which he said she accepted. But in his letter on Tuesday, Mr. McTaggart wrote, "In the allegations she provided to NPR, she did not allege that Garrison touched her back, but did claim that he engaged in other unwanted sexual touching." The network said that before it decided to sever ties with Mr. Keillor, he was informed of the claims and responded to them with his lawyer present. It also said that its lawyers tried multiple times to access Mr. Keillor's computer, emails, and text messages to aid in the investigation, but were unable to do so to date. All requests to review Garrison's emails and texts related to this matter have been refused by Garrison or his attorneys, Mr. McTaggart said. Mr. Keillor, 75, in a statement emailed to the New York Times late Tuesday, painted a far different picture of the allegations and NPR's investigation of them. He said that NPR's letter to listeners was in response to a blizzard of anger, all of it richly deserved, after NPR expunged shows that people loved. Mr. Keillor said that the woman whose lawyer filed the complaint remained friendly with him after the alleged incident, that the complaint drawn up by her lawyer was a highly selective and imaginative piece of work, and that NPR had depended on the complaint. "It never spoke with me or to the complainant. If I am guilty of harassment, then every employee who stole a pencil is guilty of embezzlement," Mr. Keillor said. "I'm an honest fiction writer and I will tell this story in a novel." In NPR's letter, Mr. McTaggart said the network had received 2 formal complaints alleging bad behavior by Mr. Keillor in the workplace. One was from the unnamed woman who said the behavior was directed at her, and the other was from someone who claimed to know about some of the alleged behavior. The letter states. NPR's letter sought to address concerns and questions from listeners, and NPR did praise Mr. Keillor for his many accomplishments, possibly to avoid another backlash. One question asked if NPR had unfairly tarnished Mr. Keillor's reputation. Another asked why NPR was so ungrateful to Garrison for his many years of service. Mr. McTaggart responded by saying, "Garrison is one of the most talented, creative, generous, and hard-working people I've ever met. We are deeply grateful for all that he has done for NPR, for Minnesota, and for our country. We have not released the letter because of our commitment to protecting the privacy of those involved, including Garrison," he said. Angie Anderson, an NPR spokeswoman, said that about 890 station memberships had been cancelled in the wake of the initial decision, but that approximately 250 people had increased their donations because of it. The network has about 133,000 members, she said. In a statement that Mr. Keillor provided to the New York Times in November, he said, "I've been fired over a story that I think is more interesting and more complicated than the version NPR heard. Most stories are." Over 4 decades, Mr. Keillor had created a financial juggernaut for the radio network with A Prairie Home Companion, his weekly broadcast of songs, skits, and tales of his fictional hometown Lake Wobegon, along with related books, recordings and other products. In November, NPR announced it would no longer distribute and broadcast Mr. Keillor's remaining programs, The Writer's Almanac and The Best of A Prairie Home Companion, hosted by Garrison Keillor.